Jennifer Reynolds again, and you can email me. I have a few cards, you can see me afterwards, but my email is jreynolds, reynolds@lexingtonky.gov. We would love to have you participate and help give us feedback on things that are important to you and your neighbors. Today, I really wanted to take a second to, first of all, thank all of you for being here and allowing me to participate, since I am not Afro myself. But I also wanted to thank our panelists and their work. These are two women that I have known for a long time and that I really admire, and I admire their work in the community. First, we have Emily Jones. And she is the current legal director of New Americans Initiative. And for over a decade, she has been focused on the practice of humanitarian and family-based immigration law, assisting thousands of clients with a variety of cases in front of Citizenship and Immigration Services and the Executive Office of Immigration Review. In addition to practicing law, she is a part-time instructor in the Political Science Department at the University of Kentucky and has taught as an adjunct faculty at the UK Rosenberg College of Law. Emily is an at-large commissioner on the Mayor's International Affairs Advisory Commission here in Lexington. And like I said, I've worked with her in her past roles, and just very impressed. She has helped a lot of people through her knowledge in immigration law. And she is going to give us a presentation about who's eligible to vote and how to become an eligible voter if you're not yet a citizen. Also, how to register to vote if you are a citizen. And she's going to cover voting rights and how to access language assistance and interpreters for family members who may need assistance at the voting precinct. Next, we have the one and only Megan Gullah. She is a wonderful person as well, and she's the Director of Partnerships and Public Engagement for Civic, which is a nonprofit organization strengthening the civic health of Lexington, Fayette County, Kentucky. Megan has a strong interest in how individuals at the local level can shape and change their communities. Megan is a University of Kentucky graduate who works extensively with a variety of community partners on the intersection of place education, public policy, and journalism. And Megan works hard to help people in Lexington become more civically engaged. And she's going to share a little bit about that and learn how local government works in Lexington, and how you can get involved in the decision-making process and vote in upcoming elections. It is an honor to be part of local government. Local government is very different from federal and state government, and Civic Lex has done a wonderful job of helping engage people in Lexington in our local government process. So with no further ado, we're going to get started. I think Megan is going to kick us off. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for being here. This is really exciting. This is a wonderful event, and we're really excited to talk about our work with you and how to get more engaged in Lexington, in local government, voting, and anything that you want to be part of. Like, that's what we do. I'm going to start my timer so I know how much time I have. Again, my name is Megan Gullah. I'm with Civic Lex. We're a civic education organization here in Fayette County, focused solely on Fayette County. So we're really just trying to help residents here do what they want to accomplish, like in Lexington. So our mission at Civic Lex, we're a nonprofit and nonpartisan, so we're not working with either party. Civic education organization building civic health through education, media, and relationship building. So we have a newsletter that goes out every Monday. If you're interested in the issues and the big topics coming through City Hall every week, you can find that in our newsletter, and you can track legislation as it moves through the process and get involved in any public input opportunities or other engagement opportunities that are happening in city government. So we really try to push that out and make it really available for residents to see and engage with. We also do workshops, so if you're part of a youth group, a church group, other organization that's interested in these topics, we can bring workshops to you that again talk about the basics of local government, about just civic engagement and issue advocacy, city budget, all kinds of things. So we're happy to bring that content to you. And then we do a lot of events throughout the year that are just bringing people together in space and trying to build community and partnerships throughout Lexington. So that's a little bit about us. And again, up there, our vision is we envision a Lexington in which all residents are able to meaningfully participate in the decisions that shape where they live. So we want you to be going to civic meetings and participating and speaking up about the things that you care about. So if you're interested in any of this, please come visit me. I'm at the table downstairs, close to the main room. Got a lot of information for materials, things that you can sign up for and get involved in there. So come to me at the table. Starting off, we've got a couple questions. We won't spend as much time on this as we usually do, but I wanted to get you all thinking about what the local government has control over and what might be like state or federal. So these are a couple of questions that I get us thinking about that. So true or false, do you think, and you can just raise your hand if you think it's true, the city of Lexington has full control over all the roads within it? If you think it's true, raise your hand. If I know hands, cool. That is false, you're correct. So the city has control over some of the roads, but some of them are state roads. So if you're working on something like a bike lane or other like safety measure for a road in your neighborhood, that might be something that you kind of run into. If it's a state road, it might take more work and just more like kind of going through red tape with the city and the state. It's going to get that accomplished. It might take longer. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The offices of the mayor and council members are nonpartisan. And nonpartisan means they're not affiliated with either any party. Our main parties here are Republican and Democrat. They don't declare what party they are. So do you think the offices of the mayor and council members are nonpartisan? You can raise your hand if you think that's true.
What was the question?
Do you think the offices of the mayor and council members are nonpartisan? They don't affiliate with a party. That is true. They are nonpartisan, so they are, I think it's a really refreshing way to conduct politics and decision-making in Lexington. It's not so much focused on like these two political ideologies, it's more about what's good for Lexington and Lexington residents. So I think it makes it easier for residents to get involved and for everyone to work together on issues rather than kind of sorting into political parties. So final question, Lexington, SCPS, and the public library are all part of LFUCG. And Lexington is our public bus system, SCPS is Civic Public Schools. So these other like big civic institutions. Do you think they're part of city government or not? Any hands? If you think it's true, you can raise your hand. You got it true? That is false. So they're associated and they work with Fayette County, but they are separate. So again, if you're doing something in the schools or you have to take a bus and it's really frustrating, there aren't enough bus stops. There's it would be great to have more like bus shelters and things like that. It might not be something your council member has direct control over. It might be something you have to work with those other groups to really get something done. So just wanted to throw those up there and give you an idea of like what city government and council has control over and what other groups might have control over and how to work together with those. So moving forward, so we focus on city government. There's city government, there's state government, there's federal government. Our focus again is on the city, and we think it's important because again we're less divided by political partisanship. Again, we're not sorted into those political parties as much here. We also have an experience that lawmakers on the local level are much more accessible. So I like to say, like, I've never seen my state, Senate representative out and about in Lexington. Have you all seen any of those folks, like high up people in government in Lexington? Probably not. But I see my council member all the time, like at the grocery store and things like that. So these folks are just out and about, and they want to hear from you, and they're really great at responding to any questions that you have. So they're much more accessible than someone that would be your state government or your government, for sure. And then finally, our local decisions often have a more immediately obvious impact. So things like how your neighborhood is developed and organized, lighting, roads, all kinds of things like directly impact your life that are coming from local government that maybe aren't the same on a state or a federal level. So we think like it's really important to focus on local. It's also the place where you can have the most impact as people organizing together. You can really get a lot accomplished on the local level. It's much harder to do in a state or a federal level. So LFUCG has used that term a lot already. You'll probably hear it a lot. It stands for Lexington Fayette Urban County Government. So that's what our city government's title is. It's like representing a merged city county government. So we we have City of Lexington and the County of Fayette County. So our governments merged. In a lot of other cities, you have separate governments that control the county and that control the city, but we're all together. So that can be a little bit weird if you live out in the more rural areas, and thinking for representatives especially, like how to represent more of the rural interests and urban interests together, because a lot of times they can be opposing. Not all the time though, but it's just interesting how our city is organized like that. And that happened in 1974, so it's been quite a while that we've had a merged city county government. And that's Fayette County right here, this is Kentucky. So if you learned about just government in the United States, you know we have an executive and legislative branch. This is how it kind of shakes out on the federal level, on the state level, and at the local level. For our executive branch, we have the mayor, departments, and boards and commissions. I'll go into more of that in a moment. And on the legislative side, so the folks that make the laws, are our vice mayor, our city council, and committees. And we'll go into that in a few minutes. Any questions so far? There's a lot of information throughout you already. So how is LFUCG organized? Starting with City Council, the legislative branch, we have 12 district council members, and Jennifer Reynolds already introduced herself. She is District 11's representative, but we have 12, and they serve 2-year terms. So that means Lexington is divided up into 12 different council districts, and each one has one representative. So if you live within that district, you want to contact that council representative if you have any issue or topic you want to work on. We have 3 council at large members, so you heard from Dan Wu in the introduction. They are elected for 4-year terms, and they are in charge of the entire county. So that's another person to think of, like if you're working on an issue, you want to contact your council or your district council person, and then you have your 3 at-large council members too. So those are all people that can help you accomplish what you want to do in your district. The at-large mayor is the vice mayor is the at-large candidate with the most votes. So that's how our vice mayor is determined. It's not like a separate election. They're running for at-large candidate, and then they get the most votes, and they're the vice mayor. And then these folks also serve on council committees, subcommittees, and task forces, and many other bodies in the city. So they're working on a lot of different issues all the time. They're often out and about in the community a lot. You can see them a lot. So just being aware of how many different things that they're involved with and how it all intersects is important when thinking about working with city government on anything. So city council's responsibilities are mentioned through the legislative body of Lexington. So again, they are creating the rules for how our city works. They are writing ordinances and resolutions, which are basically our laws. They're approving mayor's nominees to boards and commissions. So people are put forward as potential candidates for a board or commission, which I'll introduce in a second. And then they are approving those folks. And then they also help draft and approve the final city budget. So every year the city determines how to spend its money, and there's a whole process for that. It starts in April with the mayor releases. So no matter where you live, you can still contact them, and they will be interested in what you have to say and can help you. Our district council representatives, and again there are 12. Got District 1 is Tana Vogel, District 2 is Shayla Lynch, District 3 is Hannah LaBrie, District 4 Brendan Yaras, District 5 is Liz Sheehan, and District 6 is Denise Gray. 7 is Preston Morley, District 8 is Brett Brown, District 9 is William Baxter, District 10 is Dave Savigny, District 11 is Jennifer Reynolds, and District 12 is Kathy Cloman. And this year is an election year, so a few of these seats are up for election. You won't see these folks after November 5th. A new person will be voted in, and they'll start their term in January. So some of these folks up here will change. We'll have to change our presentation. But as of right now, until the end of the year, if this is your council member, you can always reach out to them. So when do the council meetings happen? If you're interested in going to a council meeting, the meetings happen downtown at the government center. It's kind of like a big old hotel building that's now just like full of offices. But you can go there anytime. You go to meetings, you just walk in. Council committees are Tuesdays at 1 at the government center. Work sessions are Tuesdays at 3, so same day, just a little bit later in the afternoon. And council meetings are Thursdays at 6 p.m., so a little bit later. Looking at the mayor's office and administration, so the mayor is the administrative branch. Again, they also have their administration, so the people that help them carry out their agendas. And then which includes the chief administrative officer, their departments and divisions, and then boards and commissions again. And so the mayor's responsibility, they have a 4-year term. They're the chief executive officer in Lexington, which again means they sort of enforce, carry out their agenda and rules and resolutions in Lexington. They also nominate members and hire government staff within the executive branch. So they have the power to bring in or like remove or bring in people when they start their administration who help them like, set their agenda and carry out their agenda. So a lot of it is a powerful role. Also set budget priorities. So again, the mayor does their budget address every April. And so they just, I say she, I use kind of default to she because Linda Gordon has been mayor for a little bit. But they set out their priorities. So it's like this is how I want to spend the money that the city has, like the city's revenue. And then again, council will comb through that budget, make suggestions, and then vote on it. Vote on a final budget later in the year. They also create programs to address issues, solve problems, and create opportunity in Lexington. So our current year right now is focused a lot on economic development, especially in like agricultural technology. So how to support the ag industry in Lexington. Also, I'm very interested in mitigation for youth gun violence. That's a big issue in Lexington. And then has Global Lex, which is the Office of Immigration. So helping residents get connected to resources within the government. So again, this is our mayor right now. You might have seen her around. She does go to a lot of festivals and community events. So you can try to see her, talk to her. She's super friendly. She's in her 2nd term. Notable aspects for her, she was our mayor during COVID-19. She again reshaped One Lexington, which is the youth gun violence program. Created the Commission for Racial Justice and Equality, and again, she's really about supporting ag tech in Lexington. Lexington's a huge agricultural city. We have a big thoroughbred industry. Keeneland, all these horse farms are kind of out there in the 12th district, along with other types of agriculture. So Lexington is all about supporting its farmers and agriculture people. So looking at where do we all fit into this? So starting with just residents, that's us. Start with them, and we elect the mayor and city council. So during these elections, again, this year is not a mayoral election year, but it is a city council year. So you can vote for city council. So we'll vote for mayor and council, and then the mayor appoints all of these other folks. And that's just important to know. Being appointed, they're there to shape the agenda and to carry out the agenda. City council, we don't really have any other say in who fills these roles. That's really the mayor's responsibility. And then for legislation in city council, how is it actually created? What is the process? Again, items are referred to committees, so we're starting even at that committee level where things just bubble up from. So an issue might be brought from a resident, someone from a board or commission, or any other group to a council member. It's like, hey, I really care about this thing. I want the council to do something about it. This is what I think you should do about it. So it'll be referred to a committee, and usually a presentation will be made about it. So that's again why committee meetings are so important in the process as a follow-up committee meeting. So there's a vote, council committee members will vote, and it's either not passed or it's passed on to the council's work session. And work sessions are really important because that's where you can get public input. It's the first opportunity in the process where residents are invited into the process to say, yes, I support this, or no, I don't support this. So we really recommend, if you're interested in advocating for something, go to the public input opportunity during the council work session. During this, information is reported out to the full council. It's also the first time the full council hears about an issue. And again, there's a vote. So it's either voted on into the process or it's not. It's captured at that stage. If it passes, it goes to its first reading. So it'll just be read out. And at that point, it's not going to change a whole lot. There is another opportunity for public input, but again, that's not the best time to go since it's mostly been decided at that point. It's probably not going to change. So again, if you want to get public input and influence that decision, you want to go to a work session meeting or comment during the work session phase. If it's passed, it goes to its second reading, and that's usually it's done and it's going to become like a law. So there's a vote. There's also another public input opportunity, but again, we don't recommend doing a lot of advocacy at that point because again, it's probably not going to change. We have a vote then, and it's usually
into it, and they're open to the public. I would like to instead extend an invitation to all of you here to come to see us when we're actually working for you and with you to get the right people into the right jobs, and to show the transparency and openness of how the election takes place. So there won't be so many lies and rumors, and you can see for yourself what goes on behind those closed doors. We meet the second Wednesday of every month, beginning at 9 a.m. Sometimes the meetings last a little bit longer, but most of the time, if there's not an election, it's only about 30 minutes at that long. Now, when there's an election, they can go on, and like we've been opening up mail-in ballots ever since they started mailing them in, and I mean, 4,700 last Monday. We were supposed to have a lunch break, which didn't happen, because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, on election day, as far as Kentucky is concerned, or at least Fayette County, you know who's won here. We can't account for other places, but we can assure you who's won in these areas. And I think it's something you need to know about and you need to be interested in, especially if you're going to live here in Kentucky. You need to know Kentucky government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I say who I was?
I wanted to show you also, but so Civic Lex, we also, every year, or every election year, we have a website that we update, it's called Lex Vote. So if you're interested in the candidates running for local office in Lexington, you can go to Lex Vote. And it's just got a ton of information here about who's on the ballot. So this year, we have district council races, so those 1 through 12. We have about, I think, 4 or 5 districts that have candidates. So those are going to be competitive elections. So find out if that's your district, you can vote for those candidates. There's also school board, so if you're in school or you have kids who are in school, this can be a big one. There are 5 school board districts, 3 of them have elections this year. You can find out about those candidates here as well. There's the Kentucky Supreme Court District 5, so there's Fayette County and a couple of other surrounding counties are part of District 5. But the Supreme Court is the highest court in the state, so one of the districts is within Fayette County. So that's a big one to vote on in the legislative process. And then you can also find your council district, and you can view your sample ballot. So depending on where you live, you're going to have different candidates, especially like the state level. So you can look at your sample ballot, see who's on your ballot, and then research the candidates so you can make an informed choice. So I think those are super helpful. And there's also the Fayette County Clerk's Office, like you mentioned it. You can look up all that information there as well. But there's a ton of info out there. We want you to be informed voters. So if you have any questions about it, see us afterward. I'd be happy to go to this website and the county clerk's website. And anything else?
Thank you, Megan. That was a really great presentation. Emily's going to step up here, but I did want to encourage you, if for some reason you're not a voter, you can't vote, that's okay. There's also other ways that you can get involved in local government.
So Megan has given you the overview of local involvement, right? And I'm coming in now as an immigration attorney to talk about citizenship and your rights as voters, okay? So, I just want you to raise your hand. How many of you are 18 or older? Okay, so we got a room of very young people. That is amazing. Okay, so this might be what you need to think about next year, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 4 years from now, okay? But many of you probably live in households where people are over 18, right? Yeah? Okay, so family members. Okay, that helps me with this presentation. Okay, so as Councilperson Reynolds just said, your voice matters. Even if you're not 18, even if you're not able to vote yet, your voice is important, okay? And being civically engaged is more than just voting, okay? Being civically engaged is all those things that Megan was just talking about, right? It's going and being involved in your community, okay? Showing up for meetings about issues you care about, writing to your legislators about things that are important to you. It means organizing community events for your friends, your family, about stuff that you care about, okay? And it's also just meeting your neighbors, okay? Being part of this community. Oh, do you need?
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Perfect. Okay. So, because I'm a lawyer, I'm going to focus sort of on the law part of all of this, okay? I'm going to try to keep it interesting. If I get too boring, tell me, okay? Because I'm a lawyer and I can get heavy. All right, so here in the United States, you can only vote if you are a U.S. citizen, okay? There is an amendment on the ballot this year about that. That's Amendment 1. So those of you that are voters, Amendment 1 is just reiterating, essentially, that non-citizens cannot vote. Okay. Who is a U.S. citizen? Well, if you were born in the United States, we have birthright citizenship here. So it doesn't matter who your parents are or where they came from. If you were born in the United States, you are a U.S. citizen at birth. Okay? Now, if you weren't born in the United States, you can still become a U.S. citizen because we have a process for naturalization here in the United States. Not every country has that, but here, if you were not born here, you can potentially naturalize to become a U.S. citizen. Okay? In order to naturalize, though, you have to be at least 18. So those of you that are under 18, you may or may not be able to be a citizen yet. Okay? You have to have a green card or have lawful permanent resident status. Okay? Before you can apply for citizenship. If you don't have a green card or you don't have lawful permanent resident status yet, you might be able to talk to an immigration attorney to find out ways that you can get on that path. Okay? In order to apply for citizenship, you have to show that you've lived in the place that you want to apply for citizenship for at least 3 months. So because we're in Lexington, you have to show that you've lived in Kentucky for the last 3 months. All right? If you go away to college and you want to apply for citizenship and you're living in a different state, you have to make sure you're there for at least 3 months before you apply. Okay? I'm talking to a group of young folks. Okay. The other requirements for citizenship. You have to show that you have been continuously in the United States for the last 5 years. What does that mean? That you can't go on any trips longer than 6 months outside of the United States for 5 years before you become a citizen. Okay? You also have to show that you've been in the United States for more than half of the last 5 years. So that equals about 30 months. So if you are someone that does a lot of travel, even if it's for a short period of time, you're still going to have to show the U.S. government that you've been here more than you've been away for 5 years. Okay? And then you have to show the government that you are a person of good moral character. Now that is an immigration term of art that doesn't really have a definition, but essentially what that means is that you do your best to follow the law. Okay? You pay your taxes, you don't get in trouble with the police, right? If you have family, you support your family. Okay? And then the kicker, which gets a lot of folks, especially new Americans, is that you have to be able to read, write, and speak in English. And you have to be able to pass the citizenship test. So for folks that have moved here, who maybe have never gone to school before, or maybe have never taken an English class, this can be a big hurdle. Okay? There are ways, if you have family members that you're worried about, you're like in your mind like, oh man, grandma, like there's no way grandma's going to be able to speak English for a citizenship test. If grandma's doctor will fill out a medical waiver for her, she might be able to use an interpreter for her interview. Okay? But that's going to have to be a doctor's decision. All right? Now, for those of you that are under 18, you may already be a U.S. citizen, even if you weren't born here. Because under U.S. law, if your mom or dad that you live with gets citizenship while you're under 18, you get what's called derivative citizenship. Okay? So if you're here in the United States and you got a green card, right? And and then your mom or dad gets citizenship before you turn 18, you automatically got citizenship when they got citizenship. Okay? So how would you prove that? Well, you can apply for a passport at the post office, and they will figure out whether or not you're a U.S. citizen, or you can apply for a certificate of citizenship to prove your citizenship. Okay? That application can be kind of expensive. I think it's $1,200 to apply for a certificate of citizenship right now, but if you can show that you have a financial need, you might be able to get that fee waived. Okay? So if you're looking to figure out whether or not you're a citizen, you can always talk to an immigration lawyer and they can help you do that assessment. Okay? So, if you're a U.S. citizen, how do you vote? Well, first, after you've figured out that you're a U.S. citizen, you need to register to vote. Okay? Registration for this election in Kentucky has already happened. The deadline was October 10th. So if you did not register to vote before October 10th, you will not be able to vote in this election. But you should go ahead and register to vote if you haven't already and you're eligible. All right? This QR code takes you to the Secretary of State website here for Kentucky, and that's how you register to vote. Okay? Again, you're not eligible to register to vote unless you're a citizen and you're over 18. Okay?
Can I add a similar website, govotekentucky.gov?
Go vote.
It's somewhere, because every phone doesn't scan QR codes.
Yes,
So I
absolutely.
want them to be able to get there and see how to register.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, good idea. The other thing about voting is it's important to treat your right to vote, your access to the ballot, as something really important. Okay? It's important not to just show up there without researching what's going to be on your ballot and who's going to be on your ballot. Okay? Megan talked about how most of the U.S. system is a two-party system, right? In general, you're picking between Democrats and Republicans, right? But sometimes there's also ballot initiatives or amendments to the Constitution on the ballot that you're going to want to think about ahead of time, okay? So it's important to be informed before you walk into the voting booth, for those of you that will be voting in the future, okay? One of the places that you can go to figure out what's on your ballot and what races are on your ballot and who's on your ballot is, again, the Secretary of State website, and also govoteky.gov, and also CivicLex's website will have what's on a lot of the ballots, okay? So if you're going to vote this year and you haven't yet looked at your ballot, please do, okay? Because the election's coming up. All right. Now, this year, how can you vote? If you're a U.S. citizen and you registered before October 10th and you live in Lexington, so there's three details there. This is the information about how to vote this year, okay? You've got some options, and it's really exciting. This year we have the option of early voting without an excuse, and we have the option of showing up on election day and voting at our precinct, okay? You can only vote once, obviously, but you have some choices. So if your schedule's really busy on election day or you're having trouble with childcare, you have some other options. So, before I do that, if you're going to go vote, there is a requirement that you prove who you are. Proof of identification is going to be required whether you vote early or whether you vote at your precinct. The rules about that I'm going to go through because I'm a lawyer and I care about this stuff. So, if you're trying to go vote, you need to have a proof of identification with you. The rules are that if you are taking a document, either issued by the United States or Kentucky, it has to have your name and your picture on it. So what would that be? Your U.S. passport could work, your driver's license, your state ID, right? As long as it has your name and your picture on it, you can use it. If you've been in the military and you have a Department of Defense ID, as long as it has your name and your picture on it, that could work. If you're going to school at a public or private university or professional school here in the U.S., you can use that ID, actually. as long as it has your name and your picture on it. If you don't have any of those IDs, the poll workers have been instructed to accept city government, county government, urban county government, any kind of government-issued document with your name and your picture, okay? So make sure that you take a picture ID with your name and your picture on it when you go to vote. Okay, so early voting. This is so exciting because you don't even need an excuse to early vote. You can vote at any of the 6 Fayette County libraries listed here from 8:30 to 4:30, starting on Halloween, October 31st. You can go November 1st or November 2nd. And you don't even have to explain why you're voting early. You can just go and vote early. It's a presidential year. Lines at the precincts might be kind of long. Sometimes that happens in presidential election years because voter turnout tends to be a little bit better. So if these times work for you and they're better for you, you might be able to go vote without a wait. So it's pretty exciting. Also, let's just go ahead and get those votes in. And that way we don't have to worry about what's going to happen on election day. Okay, option 2. This is if you have an excuse for why you can't vote. The county clerk's office is open for voters the 28th through the 30th from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but you are going to have to show that you have a qualified excuse if you try to vote at the county clerk's office. And I made a list of the excuses here. It's essentially like if you're pregnant and your due date is during the early voting time or on election day, or if you're unable to appear because of your age, or you have a disability or an illness, if you have a surgery scheduled, it's sort of like very specific excuses. So if you're thinking, oh no, I'm not going to be able to vote early, the 31st or the 2nd, or I can't be there on election day, just make sure that you meet one of these requirements before you try to show up at the county clerk's office. Okay, that's early voting. If you want to wait and you want to get on the energy of election day, which can be very fun, I think my computer's ringing somehow. Okay. Precinct locations will be open on November 5th, starting at 6 a.m., and they will be open until 6 p.m. Okay? If you do not know where your precinct is, the Fayette County Clerk has a website and a phone number here that you can check where you're supposed to vote. Okay? So if you don't know where you're voting, make sure that you check ahead of time and you make a plan, because we have studies that show if you make a plan, you're more likely to get there. Okay? All right. So, what are your rights at the polls? This is important. Okay? The U.S. hasn't always historically been so great about this. We used to charge certain populations poll taxes, make them pay to vote, terrible things like that in our history. So we want to make sure that everyone understands what their rights are at the polls so that they can exercise this benefit, right? This is a wonderful opportunity to pick who represents you in your government. Voting is really, really important, okay? So your rights are, if you are registered to vote, you get to vote, okay? You are allowed to ask questions about the procedures that you see going on. You're allowed to see a sample ballot before you vote. You in the United States get to vote in privacy, okay? Nobody knows how you vote. When you go and you place your vote, that's between you, and if you believe in God, you're God, right? But no one else is going to know how you vote unless you tell them, okay? They do not keep track of how each voter votes. And that's really important because I don't know that that's always the case in other places, okay? You're also able to vote without any fear of coercion, okay? It is against the law for people to threaten you about voting. Okay, we're going to get into that a little bit more, okay? You should have access, even if you have a disability. or you are elderly, or you are a minority, or if you are in the military. If you get to your polling place before 6 p.m. and you are in line, you get to vote, okay? So even if the line is an hour long and you don't get to place your vote till 7, you still get to vote because you were in line at 6 p.m., okay? And don't let anybody tell you different, all right? You're allowed to be in that voting booth for 4 minutes without anybody interrupting you, so if you need a second, take your second. And what's really important and what I want us all to understand, especially because I think a lot of us are in families where maybe not everyone speaks the same level of English, is that you are allowed to have an interpreter if you need one at the polls, okay? So we were talking about grandma earlier who might not be able to read English. You are allowed to go with her if she wants you to go with her to help her read the ballot, okay? The only thing is, if you go and you act as her interpreter, you're going to need your photo ID, and you're going to have to fill out a form at the polls, okay? So both of you will fill out a form at the polls, but you will be able to go and read the ballot to her. I'm using grandma as an example, but of course this could be anyone in your family. Brother, sister, mom, dad, anything, okay? The only exception to who you're allowed to take with you is that, like, it can't be your boss or your union's person or anything like that. But if you're a family member, you absolutely can go. If for some reason they question your eligibility to vote at the polls, you have the right to appeal that. So if you're having trouble signing in to vote, ask to speak to a supervisor and take it all the way up, okay? And again, when you are voting here in the United States, your ballot is completely private, confidential. So if you decide to skip a bunch of races because you don't know how to vote, you didn't do the research on that race, or you actually have no idea how you feel about a certain thing, you can skip it. Okay, there's no penalty for having an incomplete ballot. Okay?
Can I follow up on that one, Jen?
Yeah.
I don't think most people realize that if you're denied the vote, or they tell you you're in the wrong precinct or whatever, please contest it. You are entitled to a hearing. And even if we, the board, don't feel like you have the right to vote there, you actually have the right to call the judge, and then the judge makes the final decision. And that's very important, okay? Try your best to make your vote count. Thank you.
No problem. And you can also vote provisionally if there is an issue and that they can't make a decision on election day. You can still cast what's called a provisional ballot. So make sure to do that if you need to. Okay, so I'm back to interpretation and translation at the polls, because this is something that as an immigration attorney, I know that I've gotten citizenship for people who could not read English, right, because they had a medical waiver. And I still want them to be able to vote if they want to vote. And so I'm asking you, as family members who speak English, to help, okay? If people need help at the polls, go with them, right? But how this works, again, just gonna lay it out again, you are entitled to receive assistance while voting if you have a disability. And that means if you're blind or you have a physical disability, but it also includes the inability to read English, okay? So you can either use someone that's working at the polls to help you, or you can bring someone of your own choosing. You're just going to have to fill out a form. So if you are going to go, make sure you take your ID and fill out that form, okay? The form is called the SBE 31. You don't have to remember that. The poll workers will know, okay? All right, so again, we talked about this, but if for some reason your right to vote is being questioned, or your name isn't appearing the way it's supposed to, or you forgot your identification, or if the precinct officers are questioning your right to vote, you still have the ability to fill out what's called a provisional ballot, okay? And there's more information here. If you do have to cast a provisional ballot, you can check later to make sure it was counted or not, okay? So again, this is a really important right here in the United States. We get to vote, okay? And so we want to make make sure that if you have done what you're supposed to, if you're a citizen and you registered, that you get to exercise that right, okay? And I need you out there claiming that right, okay? Okay, so under state and federal law here in the United States, it is a crime for a voter to impersonate another person to vote or attempt to vote with someone else. It is a crime if you try to vote under a false name. It is a crime if you try to vote more than once in the same election. In elections, we can't vote early, vote often, right? We can vote early, but we don't get to vote that one time, okay? One time only. And then it is also illegal to try to influence or attempt to influence a voter's voting decision using force, threats, intimidation, bribery, rewards, or the offer of a reward. Okay? So if someone is outside a polling place and they're threatening, that is illegal. Okay? And if you see that, you need to report that. Okay? We don't see that usually, right? We've been really having a lot of pretty peaceful transitions of power, peaceful elections here in the United States. But if you see it, you have to say something. Okay? All right, and then again, if you do see something or you feel like your rights are violated during your voting process or during your family's voting process, please say something. Please report it, because we have to know. If we're going to have free and fair elections in the United States, it's our job, we're responsible to make sure that we're reporting it, okay? So if you end up going to help grandma, I keep bringing up grandma, but if you take grandma to the polls, right, and something goes wrong, say something. Okay? Because again, if we want free and fair elections here in the United States, we have to be watchdogs. We have to keep our eyes on this. Okay? We got to know what our rights are, and we got to exercise them. All right. So, there you have it. Okay. I have no idea how much time is left. I try to go as fast as possible.
You did great. You both did a wonderful job. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Emily. We have time for just a few questions. So I'm going to take questions from the audience. And if you guys don't ask them, I'm going to ask them, which might not be as much fun. So, does anyone have any questions for Emily or for Megan or for both? Yes.
So my question are actually, I'm a Congolese and I finished my high school in Africa. But I realized that in American high school, you don't teach civic classes. Because the civic classes, those classes that teach young students to know the rights and the election system, or the country system. So why the government stop teaching kids about those classes? And the second question is that why politicians always use immigration as the key to win the election? Because there are many immigrants who do great exercise, but if there are just two immigrants who does worse, it's the all immigration system, all immigrants who get affected by that. And I arrived in Lexington in 2015. The city was not ready the way it is right now. I guess the immigrants have been working so hard too to pay taxes to develop the city. But they never recognize those immigrants who integrate to society. They only name those who does worse in the community. Why do they do that?
I think those are two really great questions.
Repeat.
Yes. So one was, why do we not, in the United States, teach civic duties and things about government in class, in classes in the school system? I'll let these folks respond, but that's a great question. And the second question was, why are immigrants seem to in elections? Why are they being used unfairly when just one or two people might have, committed a crime or something, and then they're judged? I would like to let them respond. I do want to say on the local level, I don't think we've used them on a local level negatively, but definitely nationally, it's completely
questions. I'll answer the first one. And as far as I know, like with civics in schools, it used to be taught a lot more. But over the years, over the decades, school funding has declined a lot, and so our schools are funded by the state and also by federal monies, and that just funds for education cut year after year after year, especially from the state. So local schools have really had to decide on what subjects they really, what are the most important subjects to teach, and curriculum development, and the groups that decide that have decided STEM is really important, and things like civics, arts, those kinds of things have received less funding. And with STEM is like science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Those are the kind of things that the US is really pushing. Hold on, I'll get you in a second. And so we've really, with CivicLex, we're trying to do more civic education in the schools. Also, we see like it's taught in certain grades, so it's like by the time you get to a certain point, it's like, okay, you know about it, you don't need to know that much more. But it is something we need to learn about and practice every year. So yeah, you learn more about like on the federal level as well, you learn some on the state level, and I think it's difficult for school districts to really focus on city level, because cities are so different. Every city has a different way of organizing its city government. So it's hard for like, state curriculum boards to formulate something that will reach like all of the cities in the state. So I think you get less and less of the local sort of civic education. Some of the state in certain grades and then some of the federal in certain grades. But again, that funding has been cut. Those classes have just been pulled out of education, and we're seeing the effects of that now because we have a really undereducated on the civic level population in the United States. So yeah, CivicLex is trying to work on that. We've got a K-12 civic education program where we're trying to do our content in high schools, locally in lower schools as we go on. But it is a real problem in schools in the U.S.
Yep, Marilyn?
When I was teaching school 1,000 years ago, when they started phasing it out, it had nothing to do with money. They didn't feel like it was necessary anymore, and that's why it was dropped.
Why didn't you feel it was necessary? Because it seems like those are the key essential holistic aspects of
I
the
agree.
curriculum.
And I think even some of them might say that it is this. We get some really dumb questions, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm saying it's because they've never been taught about government and how it works and so forth. And I think even they feel like it's been a mistake, because I have been asking for it to put it back in the curriculum for at least several years.
You know how we say the youth are the future. How are they supposed to follow if they don't have a model to imitate after? That's the only reason why I'm asking, because it sounds fair from listening to her, because society changes. Because once society changes, of course, we might need more folks who need more skills in technologies and more skills in capital and more skills in agriculture. I understand that part. But at the same time, I think civic engagement is so important. It says part of the fundamental existence of human beings.
You might cut down on some of the lack of civility that we have now.
How can we bring that back? What is the model? Maybe they're doing it already. That's just one of my questions.
Take it up with the education school boards and stuff.
Yeah.
To get them to do it. We have one person here who's running. I don't know, maybe we can talk him into telling them it really does need to be put back in.
Let us know, sir. How can you do it?
How can you do it?
Yes.
I think you have to bring your voice to everything that they're talking about right here is bring your voice to the table. This school board meetings, you know, that you can go to, and you can bring your voice to the table and make sure that this is being heard and have public comment.
Yeah.
Just like at the city council.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm speaking, and I'm gonna stand up on my behalf in case you all know, my name is Philip. I run a program Box to Box, youth immigrants and new American students and American students themselves. My question is not more of a question, but it's just more of a statement, because I think he raised up an important topic, which is, well, let me not even cover his topic. Let me just speak on our behalf. Let me speak on my personal experience as a refugee. If like you speaking about I listened to you speaking about the citizenship process and how you become a citizen. Well, a lot of us may have different burdens that may also overlap that may not cause us to focus on citizenship and civic engagement. Therefore, we trust our politicians to carry us forward and to submit the best interests of the people. So often you might not even know, or you might not even have the information if you don't know, which is why I raised that question, because yes, the voice matters, but at the end of the day, sometimes we trust the people that we put there in a position, for them to represent us and to bring these food issues in place so that we can also
step up, like she's say, and bring those. So that's kind of like why I'm asking how we can get those going, so that these young men can also feel rejuvenated and included, because I'm a firm believer that we all need inspiration before the motivation. And that's why I'm coming from that standpoint of what do we need to do to get these young men involved and to get them exciting about civic engagement. That could even affect their peers when it comes to crimes and not doing things after school. So there's a lot of goodness that I see in civic engagement besides just politics itself, which is why I asked you that question, beside the normal convention way, for us who may have a different reality.
And so one of the things that the first speaker said, he said that you have politicians that come around, they knock on your door when it's time to run for office, and then you don't see them anymore. And so what you need are politicians, and this is the responsibility of the politician, to really be there beyond just knocking on the door at election time, and canvassing and trying to get people's vote. Okay, what do you do after that? You need to communicate with people to make sure that you're hearing the voices of those people. And I'm sure that Councilperson Reynolds does that. I don't want to take over this thing.
No, I wanted to bring this up because I think these young men have a passion for it. They like to get involved, but at times, like I said, we all sometimes need the motivation before the inspiration. And here we are. That's why I wanted to
bring
talk
up
about.
really good points, and I think that as an elected official, for me, it's extremely important that I'm hearing from the residents of Lexington on different issues so that I know how to vote. I take my role voting for my constituents really seriously, and I think it's a two-way street. I think it's my job to get out there, be in my district, engage with my constituents, but we also, everybody has a duty, right? A civic duty to also come to the table and be engaged. We have to work together. It's not just one or the other. And I think your point to why are politicians using immigrants in their story is really important one, and I'm gonna let Emily touch on it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stand up. So the question was, why are immigrants the political pawn, right? Why is this happening? And I think there's several reasons. And one of the things that New Americans Initiative is trying to do is make sure that there is a voice for immigrants in all of these conversations, right? I think one thing that has happened, and I think Philip, you pointed this out, is that a lot of folks are just trying to get by, right? Day to day is hard. You gotta pay your bills, you gotta get into college, you gotta win the soccer game, you got a lot of stuff going on, or the boxing match, whatever's going on, right? And so oftentimes, we're focused on other things and we don't have our voice at the table. And it's easy to scapegoat and ostracize people if you don't know them, I think. It's easier. And so what the hope is, moving forward, is that we get immigrants to the table, right? There are so many successful stories and wonderful people in this room and in Lexington making huge contributions to this community, right? Valuable contributions, starting businesses, so there's economic benefits, being good neighbors, helpful folks, so emotional contributions, right? But people aren't seeing that because that's not what they're just not seeing it, right? And so the idea is let's put the spotlight on all the good stuff, right? Let's try to get this voice out there so that it isn't easy for politicians to say all immigrants are bad, immigrants are criminals, rapists, whatever else they want to say, right? Because when someone says that, then people will be like, oh no, I know Emily and she's not like that. And so this person isn't telling the truth. These are just lies, right? But we gotta get people out there. We gotta get the spotlight on everybody's, actions and what's going on. Because you're right. They'll focus on the negative. And so that's the whole idea of sort of this conference, right? Is to get the voice out there, the civic engagement there so that people can see that it's not everybody. Immigrants are not a monolith. People care about different things, they're engaged different ways, they've got different contributions to make, right? So we need to continue the work. That's, I think, what we're learning, because it's easier to ostracize and alienate when people don't know. And so I think spreading education and knowledge and focusing the light on the really great stuff that's happening is going to be really important. And for those of you that are interested, I am hoping with New Americans and with the Mayor's International Affairs Advisory Commission to take the City Council and the Mayor around Lexington and show them all the amazing stuff that immigrants are doing here. So if you've got some amazing stuff that you want to show off, please come see me, because we're coming up with an agenda for this day out with the council and with the mayor. And so I want to know. I mean, I'm coming to see you, Philip. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about that right now. We're going to try to come see you all and all the cool stuff you're doing. But if there's other stuff going on, I want to know about it, because this is how we do this, guys. Right? This is how we change the narrative. And that's what we're hoping to do. Okay?
Yeah, something was I want to add is that I'm an immigrant, right? And during COVID, I realized that so many families were suffering because when their work permit was expired, they didn't have a chance to continue the job. So my friend and I, we worked with Andy Bar's office, and we obtained a chance 500 days, even if your work permit expired, to keep going. And that was a great thing we received. And also, we proposed other benefit for immigrants, because immigrants, they work so hard in America and they help the city to develop, but they don't have any benefits. So as immigrants who want to continue my college dreams, my friend didn't have a way to continue the dreams. So they have to only focus working and don't worry about schools. But I was so happy to hear that now BCTC is offering grants to immigrants to continue their colleges. So since you're an immigration lawyer, and also she's a civic engagement, my hope is just to see if you can take the fight to the federal level or state level, not just limits on one city, because there's immigrants everywhere. We all are immigrants somewhere. Not just because we become a citizen or we've been born here that we're special than others. But those people also, they need benefit, they need medical care, they need insurance like the rest of us. I know they don't have a right to vote, and also, but they need those help when they need it. Yeah.
You're exactly right. So I think if keep in mind, when you do get the benefit to vote, like when you do get your citizenship, if you remember all those folks coming up behind you, right, when you're making your decisions about voting, that can be helpful, right? Because just because someone can't vote doesn't mean that they don't still need things. And so if you are a voter, be thinking about your neighbors and what they need too. And that way when you're making your decisions, you're thinking about others. That's so great.
That's awesome. I just wanted to add to what Emily said about immigrants and why do politicians use them as a scapegoat. And I think that if we look over all the history of our country, the marginalized have always been used, right? It doesn't matter what group it is. Those in power look for a way to blame what's going on around them on someone else. And it's usually the people that cannot defend themselves. And so, current political, I think, climate has done that. They've said, oh, who can we blame this time? And they've picked out immigrants, and they've done that. And it's not fair, and it's evil. But like Emily said, if we can help tell the stories of what's really happening, then we can help change people's minds. So I think we're just gonna have one more quick question, and we're gonna close.
It's really not a question. It's just to add to what Eve was talking about. Why don't they teach these things in classes and all that? But been working with school system for about a year now, and I've seen a lot of kids curriculum and schedules having citizenship classes on it. And I've seen that's something good that is already starting happening. I think that's one way of implementing all these things in. Before you graduate, you have to pass a citizenship class, and that's something good that I've seen around.
It's
and
not, you don't understand the courses of the education, and when it comes to political science for some of these guys, you know what I mean? It's great,
Yeah.
it looks there.
I mean, it's
Especially
pretty much
someone who works with
it's a way they've already started implementing it slowly by slowly, and then after just passing a course, maybe it will be something bigger than that.
Because
Yeah, it's used to be
I
done.
struggle with the understanding. It was very interesting to me That's why I'm even engaged in civic engagement in the community, right? Because I wanted to know how I can serve my community better and how can I connect with those people that are in a like-minded field. But the thing that I struggled with was the understanding of the culture itself, who to go talk to, and the language itself, and just understanding, okay, this is what they're asking from us, and this is what we need to do. So that sometimes can get overwhelming. Listen, I'm not asking for a handout for any of my boys or any of myself or family members. To his point of just making it interesting or bringing people to the table, that's why I'm curious more about what we need to do, because I do think civic engagement can definitely prevent us from a lot of the social issues that we struggle with, whether it's crime at school, whether it's bullying at school, whether it's just the understanding of other cultures and other countries, how they operate as well. Because sometimes I think we have this monolithic understanding of how things work in the United States, and we think that's how things in different part of the world, but it's totally different, you know? So I think those things matter as well, and that's where I come in for me. I'm curious about how can we get to bridge in the two worlds together.
Well, we're
and
gonna
get
need
people
to,
excited.
we're gonna need to work with our schools, right, and at the state level, because the schools are run by the state, so. I want to give you all a round of applause for listening. I know that was a long session. Thank you. And thank you to Emily and to Megan as well for their expertise.
All right, guys, let's give another round of applause for Jennifer for holding that. One more thing I want to mention, we're going to have a second session. We can still, you guys can go back in there, or after lunch, and you can come back here to go back and forth. But I want to add a little bit. This is what Jennifer is here. You know she's a city council, and some of you live in some of those districts. So when we want to make change and there are people that they are leading us, let's approach them, okay? They're human beings just like us, so we all have needs just like them. So it's okay to make this conversation easy, because I feel like if you live in Versailles Road area, Jennifer, she's the person to talk to, okay? So let's normalize that so we don't feel like they're just some people that come from planet Earth, right? They are from planet Lexington, okay? Thank you again, and let's enjoy this meal, guys. Thank you. Lunchtime.